Today, you're about to witness one of the most explosive political hearings in recent memory. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett faces intense scrutiny, viral media attention, and high-stakes questioning, and the way she handles it all has left Washington and the nation talking. From shocking revelations to viral moments that broke the internet, this story shows how preparation, strategy, and transparency can turn pressure into power. Stay tuned. What happens next will surprise you, challenge your assumptions, and redefine how political accountability plays out in real time. It started quietly. At first, the world thought it was just another day in the whirlwind of American politics, where headlines come and go like storms in summer. But on this particular morning, a story began to unfold that would grip national attention for hours and eventually days. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, known for her precise questioning and unflinching dedication to transparency, prepared to enter a hearing that no one could have predicted would turn explosive in the chamber. The air was thick with anticipation. Journalists set up their cameras, flashing lights illuminating stacks of documents and laptops. Staffers whispered last-minute updates, while aides shuffled papers in a careful choreography that masked the tension underneath. At the center of it all, Jasmine Crockett sat composed, reviewing her notes, mentally preparing for the questions that were sure to come. She wasn't just going in to speak. She was going in to confront an evolving storm head-on. The controversy had begun days earlier. DNA results, long awaited by the public, had leaked in a fragmented, incomplete form. Speculation, rumors, and half-truths swirled around Melania and Barron, feeding a frenzy of commentary on social media. Conservative pundits, liberal commentators, and mainstream news outlets were all weighing in, creating a chaotic environment where clarity seemed impossible. It was in this climate that Crockett decided to act not as a partisan force, but as a legislator determined to ensure transparency and accountability. The hearing started on a procedural note, but Crockett quickly shifted the focus. Calmly, she requested all available verified documents related to the DNA results. Her approach was methodical. Establish the facts first, dismantle the misinformation second, and make sure the public understood the timeline, the chain of custody, and the legitimacy of every sample. It was meticulous work, the kind that left no room for ambiguity, speculation, or misinterpretation. Melania, seated nearby, exuded an unusual mix of composure and unease. Unlike typical political opponents, this was personal in the public eye. Every movement, every gesture, every expression was being analyzed by thousands of viewers online. Reporters scribbled notes as Crockett systematically laid out the verified findings. With each document she referenced, the room's energy shifted. Whispers turned into murmurs. Phones buzzed. The tension was almost tangible. Then came the first major moment. Crockett pointed to a section of the DNA report that clarified previously ambiguous results. It wasn't just technical data. It directly addressed questions that had circulated in both tabloids and political commentary. She read aloud, word by word, explaining the scientific methods, the certification of the testing lab, and the legal framework ensuring the integrity of the process. The clarity was immediate. It exposed misinterpretations and misinformation while simultaneously putting the focus back on transparency, the central tenet of her approach. Melania's reaction, though subtle, was noticeable. A tightening of her jaw, a slight pause. The kind of reaction that suggested awareness of how public perception could shift in seconds. Crockett, however, did not react to the display of tension. She maintained her calm, professional demeanor, focusing only on the facts, the documentation, and the legal and ethical obligations at hand. By now, the hearing had drawn the attention of the wider political world. Social media started buzzing with clips of Crockett's meticulous breakdown. Analysts began predicting how the unfolding scenario could influence both public opinion and ongoing political debates. The dual narrative, one of personal scrutiny and one of legislative accountability, created a complex stage. Crockett had positioned herself at the center of it, not by theatrics or rhetoric, but through methodical and transparent action. Her next move was decisive. She asked for additional verification from the lab and legal counsel to ensure every statement she made was indisputable. The meticulous attention to verification allowed her to stay 2 steps ahead of the swirling rumors. Every question from other committee members, every skeptical glance from the gallery, and even every subtle reaction from Melania was addressed with clarity, evidence, and a precise explanation. By the end of this sequence, Crockett had effectively framed the narrative. Transparency, verified evidence, and calm authority would dictate how the story was interpreted. The first hour ended with reporters typing furiously, cameras focusing on Crockett's composed demeanor, and Melania appearing increasingly guarded. The public could feel the tension from home. Online, the narrative was shifting. It was no longer about speculation or scandal. The focus had moved to accountability, evidence, and the strategic skill with which a single legislator could influence the national conversation. Crockett's careful, deliberate approach ensured that while the room was tense, it remained orderly. She had established control without confrontation, demonstrated authority without aggression, and prepared the groundwork for what everyone knew was coming next: the deeper, more explosive revelations that would shock the chamber, the public and the media alike. As the hearing progressed, the atmosphere in the chamber intensified. Every word, every pause, every gesture carried weight. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett remained poised, but the tension surrounding Melania was undeniable. Journalists whispered among themselves. Cameras tracked every reaction, and the public watched in real time, anticipating the first major clash that could define the day. Crockett's strategy was clear: let the facts speak, anticipate counterattacks, and prevent distractions from derailing the narrative. She began connecting the dots, showing how early misinterpretations of the DNA results had fueled an unnecessary political frenzy. Her methodical approach highlighted discrepancies between rumors circulating online and verified scientific documentation. Every correction she made was precise, professional, and delivered without a hint of hostility, a style that immediately captured the respect of neutral observers. Then came the first direct challenge. A committee member, clearly influenced by weeks of media speculation, questioned the relevance of the DNA results and whether they could be politicized. Crockett responded with confidence, outlining exactly how these results had become a focal point for public discourse and why transparency was crucial for restoring public trust. Her words were calm but firm, emphasizing accountability over personal attacks. And the room began to recognize the depth of her preparation. Melania, sitting quietly but visibly tense, leaned forward slightly. It was clear that Crockett's meticulous handling of documents, timelines, and verified evidence had unsettled the narrative that her team had hoped to maintain. Behind the cameras, aides exchanged glances. Even seasoned reporters could feel the shift in momentum. Crockett wasn't just answering questions, she was taking control of the story and steering it toward clarity, transparency, and truth. At this point, Crockett introduced previously undisclosed communications between officials, demonstrating how misreporting and speculation had spread. Each document was carefully referenced with dates, signatures, and verified sources. The effect was immediate. Committee members, reporters, and staffers alike leaned in, recognizing that this was not a routine political hearing but a moment of high stakes, accountability. A subtle but significant tension emerged. Members of the committee began whispering to each other, attempting to gauge the reactions from both sides. Crockett, however, maintained her rhythm, transitioning seamlessly from one piece of evidence to the next. Her delivery was precise, ensuring that no misinterpretation could take hold and no sensationalism would distract from the facts. Then, a pivotal moment arrived. Crockett addressed the elephant in the room, the personal scrutiny of Melania. Without attacking, she highlighted how unverified information had made its way into public discussion, influencing both opinion and media coverage. Her calm, strategic framing turned what could have been a controversial confrontation into an educational and informative discourse. She made it clear, the focus was not on individuals but on accountability, accuracy, and transparency. This approach had a dramatic effect. While Melania remained mostly silent, her composure began to crack slightly under the weight of the facts presented. The media recognized the skill in Crockett's navigation of personal sensitivity versus public transparency. Online, viewers began dissecting every moment, praising Crockett's ability to maintain professionalism while exposing gaps in oversight and misinformation. Social media clips of her precise explanations quickly went viral, sparking discussions not just about the DNA results, but about ethics, media responsibility, and the importance of evidence-based discourse. By mid-afternoon, the chamber was fully aware that this hearing had escalated beyond its original scope. What began as a simple inquiry had become a masterclass in strategic communication. Crockett had managed to turn what many expected to be a politically charged spectacle into a focused discussion on transparency and public trust. Her ability to remain composed in the face of tension, personal scrutiny, and media frenzy demonstrated why she was considered one of the most effective communicators in modern politics. The first significant exchange had concluded, but everyone in the room knew the most explosive moments were yet to come. Crockett had established her authority, outlined the verified facts, and set the stage for deeper revelations. The chamber and the public alike were left wondering, how far would she go to ensure the truth emerged? And how would those implicated respond under the mounting pressure? As the hearing moved toward its second phase, the intensity only increased. The media outlets prepared live coverage with expert commentary, social feeds lit up with reactions, and analysts speculated on the potential political ramifications. Crockett's skillful navigation of the first round had already shifted the narrative. The story was no longer about scandal or gossip. It was about transparency, preparation, and the strategic presentation of truth in the face of public pressure. In those moments, it became clear to everyone watching that Jasmine Crockett was not merely participating in a hearing, she was defining it. Every fact presented, every calm response, and every meticulous reference reinforced her credibility. And as the chamber braced for the next wave of revelations, both sides understood that this day would be remembered as a pivotal point in the intersection of politics, public trust, and media accountability. As the hearing progressed into the afternoon, the tension in the chamber reached new heights. Jasmine Crockett had already established her presence with precision, calm authority, and meticulous presentation of verified documents. But what came next would push the hearing into uncharted territory. And the world was watching. The second phase began with Crockett unveiling a set of communications that had not been publicly disclosed. These included internal memos, timelines, and verification logs connected to the DNA results of Barron. Each document was presented with clarity, emphasizing the verified chain of custody and the scientific rigor behind the testing. She carefully explained the methodology, the certifications of the laboratories involved, and the legal protocols that ensured integrity. Every member of the committee leaned in. Journalists clicked pens and tapped keyboards, capturing every word. Melania's reaction was subtle but noticeable. Unlike earlier, her composure wavered. A slight tightening of her jaw, a brief pause in her notes, and a hesitant glance toward her aides suggested the gravity of the situation was sinking in. Crockett, however, did not react to this subtle display. Her focus remained entirely on the facts, the evidence, and the narrative of transparency she had built. Then came the first explosive confrontation. One senior committee member, visibly frustrated by the meticulous dismantling of prior assumptions, attempted to redirect the questioning. Congresswoman Crockett, they interjected sharply, "Do you really think the public needs this level of detail? Isn't this just stirring unnecessary controversy?" Crockett paused, maintaining perfect composure, and replied, "It is precisely because the public is invested that we must ensure clarity. Transparency is not optional, it is a responsibility. Misinterpretations and speculation have already caused confusion. Providing verified information allows citizens to understand the facts and hold institutions accountable." Her words resonated across the chamber. It wasn't just a rebuttal. It was a statement of principle. Social media, which had been tracking every reaction, immediately began highlighting the exchange. Clips of Crockett's calm yet forceful delivery went viral, drawing millions of views in real time. Analysts praised her ability to counter both skepticism and political posturing with facts and poise. Next, Crockett turned to the broader implications of the DNA results. She explained how misreporting had affected media coverage, public perception, and even political strategy. Her insight demonstrated an understanding that extended beyond legal or scientific knowledge. She was analyzing social impact, media framing, and political consequence. By framing the issue in this comprehensive way, Crockett highlighted why misinformation can have ripple effects across national discourse. The chamber's energy shifted again when Crockett addressed the most contentious point, the timing and handling of the release of the results. Without casting blame personally, she illustrated how delays, inconsistent messaging, and unverified leaks contributed to public confusion. Her methodical breakdown exposed gaps in communication and procedural oversight, holding key figures accountable without resorting to rhetoric or sensationalism. At this moment, the gallery erupted with quiet murmurs and shuffling. The impact of her evidence was undeniable. Media crews zoomed in on her calm face, while online commentators dissected each sentence. The narrative had shifted completely. This was no longer a story about rumor or scandal. It was a case study in transparency, accountability, and strategic communication. Crockett then addressed the audience directly, tying the evidence to broader themes of trust, ethics, and civic responsibility. She explained why every verified step mattered, why misinformation could undermine public confidence, and how procedural rigor ensured fairness. Her words, delivered with unwavering poise, reinforced her role not just as a legislator, but as a steward of public trust. Melania and her team, once confident, now appeared increasingly defensive. Advisors whispered urgently. Aides exchanged concerned glances. Crockett, however, never lost focus. She methodically moved through her remaining points, anticipating potential counterarguments and addressing them before they could be raised. By controlling the narrative through facts and clarity, she demonstrated the power of preparation and the effectiveness of calm, evidence-based communication in high pressure. Political scenarios. The final segment of Part 3 focused on public and political reactions. Analysts, social media influencers, and media outlets alike debated Crockett's approach, praising her combination of professional demeanor, legal expertise, and strategic thinking. Citizens engaged actively in discussions about transparency and media responsibility, reflecting the broader societal impact of the hearing. Crockett's methodical, factual approach had transformed what could have been a short, sensationalized story into a substantive national conversation about ethics, accountability, and public trust. By the end of this session, it was clear to everyone Jasmine Crockett had not only exposed the facts, but had also reshaped the narrative. The combination of evidence, transparency, and professionalism had created a defining moment in political discourse. Observers noted that while confrontations often escalate into partisan chaos, Crockett's approach proved that precision, preparation, and composure could command attention and respect even in a room filled with high-profile political figures, tense journalists, and an invested public. The stage was now set for the final act. All the groundwork, the meticulous presentation, and the viral impact of her previous exchanges had prepared the chamber and the nation for the most decisive moments yet. Everyone knew that what happened next would define not only the hearing, but also the public perception of accountability, transparency, and the power of strategic political leadership. As the hearing entered its final phase, the chamber was electric with anticipation. Every journalist, staffer, and committee member sensed that the most decisive moments were unfolding. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had already demonstrated mastery over facts, procedural accuracy, and strategic communication. Now, the culmination of her efforts was about to reveal the full impact of transparency and accountability in real-time. Crockett began by summarizing the verified DNA findings and associated communications one final time. Each reference was precise, leaving no room for misinterpretation. She emphasized the importance of public trust and the responsibility of elected officials to provide accurate information. The American people deserve clarity, she stated firmly. Our role is not to speculate, but to verify, document, and uphold accountability for every individual involved and for the nation as a whole. The chamber was silent. Every eye focused on her as she methodically laid out the evidence. Melania, previously tense, now appeared visibly strained. Aware that the public record was shifting rapidly under Crockett's authoritative narration, aides whispered nervously. Even seasoned political veterans recognized the weight of the moment. Crockett's calm, measured delivery contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of speculation that had dominated headlines for weeks. Then came the most explosive exchange. A committee member attempted to challenge the relevance of certain communications, suggesting that the attention placed on the DNA findings could be exaggerated. Crockett responded with a combination of legal precision and moral clarity. Relevance is determined not by convenience, but by the impact on public understanding and trust. If misinformation circulates unchecked, the consequences extend far beyond speculation. They undermine confidence in institutions and processes. It is our duty to clarify, correct, and ensure that facts guide public discourse. Her statement resonated not only within the chamber, but across the nation. Social media clips of her measured yet forceful words spread like wildfire, sparking debates, news analyses, and commentary threads that dissected both her logic and her delivery. Viewers praised her ability to stay composed while dismantling misinformation, highlighting how strategy, preparation, and calm authority can dominate chaotic political narratives. The turning point came when Crockett addressed Melania's team directly, without personal attacks, focusing solely on procedural clarity and transparency. She connected the dots between delays in public disclosure, inconsistent messaging, and the resulting media frenzy. Her explanation revealed how even minor gaps in communication could be amplified into national controversies and why accountability was not optional in the public sphere. By the mid-afternoon, the viral impact of Crockett's approach was evident. News outlets, social media platforms, and political analysts highlighted her methodical dismantling of misinterpretations. Citizens across the country engaged in conversations about the importance of transparency, fact-based reporting, and responsible political discourse. The hearing had become more than a congressional process. It had evolved into a nationwide lesson on credibility, media responsibility, and strategic communication. In the final moments, Crockett delivered a concluding statement that balanced authority with empathy. This is not about scandal. This is about ensuring that truth and transparency prevail, when the facts are clear, when evidence is verified, and when accountability is upheld we strengthen not only our institutions, but the trust of the people we serve. The chamber responded with quiet acknowledgement, a rare moment of collective respect. Media crews captured every nuance, from Crockett's.com tone to the subtle expressions of relief or realization among committee members. Even online discussions reflected the shift. The story was no longer dominated by sensationalism or speculation, but by a measured focus on facts, strategy, and responsible leadership. Melania, though still maintaining her public composure, no longer attempted any verbal rebuttal. The evidence had been laid bare, and the narrative had decisively shifted. Crockett had achieved what few could in a high-stakes political environment. She had commanded attention, clarified complex information, and turned potential controversy into a masterclass of transparency and strategic communication. As the hearing concluded, analysts highlighted several key takeaways. The power of preparation and factual evidence in controlling narrative, the importance of maintaining composure under public and media scrutiny, how transparency and strategic communication can reshape public perception in real time, the potential for a single legislator's careful actions to create nationwide conversations about squack squash, my only lipstick, ruby kiss, ruby kiss, ruby kiss, Lobby kiss, has the luxurious texture that glides on squack, and leave, my lacy, lies, lacy kiss, lazy kiss, still squack, my lead squack, lies squack, my mill. Accountability and ethics. By the end of the day, the story had fully evolved from a rumored scandal into a clear example of how calm authority, verified information, and strategic communication could dominate the national stage. Crockett had transformed the narrative entirely, leaving a lasting impression on both political observers and the general public. This hearing would be remembered as a defining moment in political discourse, one where preparation, professionalism, and dedication to truth prevailed over speculation, fear, and incomplete information. The public now had not just facts, but a clear demonstration of how transparency and accountability could be effectively exercised in the highest levels of governance. The impact rippled beyond the chamber. Analysts predicted changes in media coverage strategy, discussions about ethical responsibility, and a reevaluation of how political narratives are framed. Crockett's methodical approach had set a new standard for public engagement, evidence-based communication, and strategic leadership in politics. In the end, Jasmine Crockett's performance during the hearing didn't just clarify the DNA results or address public concern. It showcased the power of informed, strategic, and ethical leadership, a demonstration that, in a world of speculation and sensationalism, truth and transparency can still command attention and respect.